So thank you all for joining us today. This is, I can't keep track, either the third or fourth business town hall that we're doing. We've hosted things on Zoom. We've been on GoToWebinar. This is our first one on GoToMeeting. And so I'm already preferring this format to what we tried last week. So thank you all for juggling the various technologies that we've been trying to get comfortable with. Today will be similar. We're still learning, but a couple quick guidelines for folks. As we may have additional folks trickling in and this meeting gets larger, then we'd recommend please using the chat function just to maintain some sort of order here for any questions that you have. I think at the end we'll be able to open it up for questions, and speak more as a group. We want to hear from you, kind of what you're dealing with and what you're hearing. Today we will have a representative from the Boston SBA Boston office, Dan Martiniello, which I'm probably butchering his name, but he'll be able to say it when he gets here. He's finishing up another call at that got out at 3, but it usually runs a little late. So I made sure he has the login details, so he should be here in 10 or so minutes. To kick it off, we'll be talking a little bit about a brief update from what we're doing in economic development and at City Hall, and talk about some high-level, stuff for that. So thank you guys all for joining. I will do a little screen share here to have the slides, and Tom, just let me know as you're talking about it to go on to the next slide.
Great, thanks. Just waiting for that screen share. Oh, here we go. So we've got a quick agenda today, or at least a quick series of announcements, and then we'll hopefully be ready for Dan, for him to be on board.
Sorry, let's go to the top here.
Yeah, start the.
Oops, sorry. Where is? Here we go. All right. So we are recording, and again, if you have questions, right in the chat function there.
So our quick agenda today, we're going to talk about the city's technical assistance program that we've re-rolled out this week. We've expanded it. We're also going to talk about some scams that we've been made aware of that relate to the recovery efforts. Also, some announcements from the mayor, latest announcements, and then we'll have our guest from the Boston Regional Office of the SBA, Dan Martiniello. Great, now 2 of us are butchering his name.
Right.
And we've got Daniela Carrillo, who's one of our economic development assistants. She is quarterbacking the technical assistance program. She's here to talk about it. Go ahead, Daniela.
Hi. Yes, we just launched our technical assistance program. We're receiving applications. This program is offering a free one-on-one coaching assistance to businesses affected by the coronavirus. For applications, I'm gonna add the link for the applications here in the chat, and you can apply for loan applications, whether it's the SBA loans, the CARES Act, payroll. You can apply also for financial planning, restaurant operations, website design, and e-commerce, or any other topic that you feel that might be helpful for this situation right now. If you have any questions, please, you can fill the application, and please feel free to contact me. I'll also add my email here.
Daniela, can you mention what our language capabilities are for our advisors?
So we have so far 8 different coaches. We have some that are going to be able to help in Spanish. Other one is going to be able to help in Portuguese, and we're still looking for any more languages. But yeah, in the application, you're going to find more information in different languages if you want to share the information. And I believe we also have the application, the survey, we have it in Spanish, and we're waiting for the Portuguese translation.
And this coaching is available for any business in the city of Somerville. In fact, if you're a resident of the city of Somerville and you own a business somewhere else, we definitely want to help you as well. So please spread the word and let people know that we have resources available. We've already, in the last couple of days, we've had a dozen folks seek assistance, and we have a few more every day that are reaching out to us. So spread the word.
Yeah, and the only thing is that it doesn't matter if your business is in Somerville or it's not in Somerville, but you're a resident, but it's an existing business that it was already in operations when this emergency happened.
So if you're a startup and you've yet to launch, we are going to push you to the back burner. We want to help the folks and the businesses that are already suffering in our current business ecosystem. Thanks, Daniela. Next slide.
One sec. Yep. So
Lauren, you want to jump up and talk about the scams that we've heard about?
Yes, and I confess I'm not a scam expert in any way, but we have heard reports from businesses who have been applying for the PPP program through their bank and have had some sort of nefarious activities sort of kicking up with other people outside of the bank requesting personal and financial information. So we're just trying to get the word out there that people should be cautious. Everybody in the country is really in the same boat right now, and so it's unfortunately a ripe environment for people to take advantage. So just take a minute if someone's calling you, if things seem a little off, take a deep breath, take a look at what the phone number is, what the email address is, and if you're not so sure, feel free to call back to the bank and the number that you have and the contact that you know is legitimate and check in with them. For the most part, people shouldn't be asking you for identifying information, financial information over the phone. So just a word of advice, keep your eyes open for that kind of thing as you apply for these programs.
Thank you, Lauren. Next slide. And just a couple different pieces of information. Again, we're still focused on staying closed for the most part. Our business is staying closed until May 4th. We want to restrict social gatherings. In addition, earlier this week, the mayor announced that all of the city's public events are closed all the way through June, and that includes the city's 4th of July fireworks. So any public events anywhere else in the city, they're not happening if they're scheduled for June. That includes Carnival, unfortunately, in East Somerville, and many other events like Porch Fest and everything else that the city's known for. So next slide, please.
Great. So this is for Dan. He is still heading this way. I know he had another call that ran a little past 3. So, once he is here, I'll be able to hand it off to him. He has another slide deck that we'll go through. And so hang tight for that. So I'm going to move to the next slide.
So on our website, on the city's coronavirus website, we've listed all this information, but there's some, every day there's some new resources that are being made available. In fact, we got a list earlier today of some additional ones that haven't even made this list, but there's an Employee Rights and the Families First Coronavirus Response Act that requires certain employers to provide their employees with paid sick leave and expanded family and medical leave for specified reasons related to COVID-19. These provisions will apply from April 1st, 2020, all the way through the end of the year. Also, the Somerville Arts Council has developed a long list of resources for artists. So if in your travels, if there are any artists on this call today, definitely check the city's main website on coronavirus. You'll get linked quickly to the Somerville Arts Council. And if you know any artists in the city, please let them aware. Usually our artists are very well networked, especially with the Arts Council, but in case they're not, let them know. And again, later on today, we'll be posting additional information for some other activities that have popped up where there are different nonprofit organizations, different alliances of lawyers and accountants that are offering up free assistance as well. And so we'll be able to share that with you on our website and our forthcoming e-newsletter.
Great.
Yeah, again, we've highlighted this and teased this over the last couple of weeks. We're still not quite ready, but we're putting together a program for for direct financial assistance for City of Somerville business owners. And again, you may have heard that the City of Boston, the City of Cambridge has done something similar to the City of Worcester. We're approaching things with the same resources, and we're probably, I hoped we'd have something by now, but we have some final wrinkles to iron out. For this, we'll be utilizing our community development block grant funds to provide direct financial assistance for for a portion of our businesses. We have limited amount of funds. We're still waiting to hear how much we'll have available, and I'm sure there'll be tremendous interest in those resources. And we're actually about to hopefully within the next week or so, we'll have something formalized that we can announce.
Great. So as we still wait for Dan to join us, I think at this point we could open it up to questions. I'm gonna turn this slide to sharing off, but now we can all see each other again. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you all. Again, what are the issues that you guys are most curious about? If you're welcome to unmute yourself to share, or use the chat, whichever is more comfortable. But yeah, please, what would be helpful for you all to know from us right now, and how could we, make what would be helpful?
This is Jade Moran. I don't have my video on. I don't think you can see me. Can you see me?
We can't see you, no.
Okay. Should I turn my video camera on? Will that make it easier?
Up to you, but this is fine.
I've never used this before, so okay. In any case, my question is about rent. I have spoken to my landlord about the rent situation, and she was really surprised to hear that business owners might have a hard time coming up with rent in this environment. And I was wondering if the city was going to, I don't know, give any guidance to landlords in general about that, or any resources about. I saw the negotiating thing, but that seemed to be about negotiating leases that were new. So I was sort of wondering about that one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Jade, thanks for your question. And that's been a hot topic over the last couple of weeks. A week and a half ago, the mayor had issued an order that would virtually prevent evictions from happening, both for residents and commercial tenants. And so that means that the city doesn't want to see this to happen. And of course, you may have read too that at the state, I think the state Senate now is considering a bill that would temporarily restrict evictions during this crisis, and for both residents and for commercial tenants. And what we're encouraging folks to do is to reach out to your landlord. If you're a tenant, reach out and build those, strengthen those lines of communication and figure out how you're all going to get through this together. We don't want to see evictions happening. We don't want to increase the public safety hazards that might occur if people have to leave their apartments, or if businesses need to be forcibly pushed out of their other property. Of course, rent is still due. And we've been working with a number of different landlords and tenants to try to figure out solutions and try to figure out a way where everybody can sort of press the pause button so that everybody is able to stay in business in the long term, and property owners are able to pay their bills and to pay their mortgage to their banks and to pay their taxes to the city. So we don't have any clear guidance, not on the commercial property side. I believe our Housing Stability Office has issued some guidance for landlords who rent to residents. But reach out to your landlord, and if you have any questions and if you have any concerns, if you want some help from us, we're happy to participate and to see if we can work something out with both sides.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hi, Tom. Margaret LaForest here with the Mass Office of Business Development. It is the Baker Administration Executive Office Economic Development Agency, and my colleague Sue Whitaker is also on this call. Jade, have you, and I'm happy to take this offline, and for you or anybody on this call to facilitate any questions. I know we have the SBA here, but we too are a resource for your companies to have any questions answered. The rent issue is a very hot trending topic, but one question I have is if you are considering applying for the PPP, you have until June 30th to bring your payroll back, and the forgivable loan that you're hearing about, as long as 75% of the loan amount goes to payroll, you are able to pay your rent, your insurance, your mortgage, your utilities with those funds, and those too would be forgivable. I'm happy to talk to you offline if that's something of interest to you.
Oh, I applied the first day it was available. Thank you.
Yep. So I think too, let your landlord know that your application is pending. The SBA guidance that we've heard, Sue and I have been on multiple calls this week with the SBA, and they're saying, I think they were very aggressive in rolling the program out. The banks didn't have their guidance jiving with their systems yet. And as now that is happening, they're expecting within the next week that the PPP money should be flowing. So be patient on that. I would most definitely let your landlord know that you're in the process of applying for that, and to give you some flexibility on the timing, because that will be a forgivable loan to you, and assuming you did your formula correctly on your loan amount with 75% payroll, and then minimum 75% payroll, and then you could use up to 25% for the mortgage, rent, insurance, utilities.
Right. I actually, when I was reading through, when I was reading through those questions, I did notice that it seemed as though it was possible for landlords, if they were small business owners, to also apply for these. And I was wondering if it would be helpful to push out the information to landlords who are expecting to lose rents because of this to apply for these loans, because it seems like there's a cascading effect that's going to happen.
We were on a call last week with Congressman Kennedy, and we were talking about, what around this being such a topic, about, there's the front line, whether you're a resident or whether you're the business tenant. Then there's the building owner, and the whole real estate market, how we're able to support the COVID pandemic with the real estate market, because there's just so many domino effects, right? The landlords are eligible, and typically they would not be, but they are eligible for the economic injury disaster loan. So say, for example, if you're a homeowner that owns a 3-family and you live in one of those units, but the other 2 are your rental income, and now you're affected with an economic injury, you're eligible to apply for the EIDL loan. So I'm sure when Dan comes on the call, he can drill into more detail about that. But,
thank you.
I know that we can Sue and I will put our contact information in the chat window. We're here for you. You can call us, you can email us. You're going to get a live person at the end of that to be responsive to you. And if there's something we're partnering with the SBA, and if there's a lot of questions being fielded, if we can be a support, to the city of Somerville and the companies there, we're a resource for you as well. So we'll put our contact info in the chat.
Thank you.
So Margaret, this is Joe Carrero from El Portro. With all due respect to what you're saying, if you do the PPP calculation, there's not a lot of money that would be left over to pay rent and utilities if you want to continue to adhere to the philosophy of the whole goal of the PPP is to put people back on payroll. So in most payroll calculations, the idea of the PPP is to bring back employees for 8 weeks. You could not do that if you use any of it for, rent or utilities. So you're kind of cutting off the hand that feeds you, because if you don't have employees, it doesn't matter if you're paying the rent or not. So most of businesses, especially restaurants that I've talked to, if we get a PPP, it's simply going to be to pay our employees, and even then it could be nearly impossible, because we're not going to be able to get up to the 75% capacity necessary to put employees back on. So it's a self-defeating prophecy, and it's a real disappointment in the way that it's said. So I think it's not good advice to tell people you got the PPP to pay your rent. I mean, because I don't think that for a lot of businesses, there's going to be a lot of liquidity there to do it.
So I think that's not fair just to categorize blanketly, right? Because every single business that I've spoken with, and there have been many, are in different situations with different size, different payroll volumes. So what my comments were, and again, the SBA program is not a program of the Mass Office of Business Development, but that rent is an eligible expense under the forgivability. The PPP loans can go above and beyond what is forgivable for people as well. So it's definitely a one-on-one conversation. And Joe, I'm happy if you want to give me a call to talk about your situation to see if there's anything I can, assist with there as well. But most definitely it's saying that the formula is critical to understand what's forgivable. I think there's a lot of people trying to understand that and understand how they can put the math together that works for their company. I've worked with a lot of restaurants. Everybody's situation is different, but the math is the key. The loan amount that you're looking for can be converted into a grant, but there's specifics, criteria relative to payroll. You are correct. The intent is bringing people back on board with the payroll in companies. For example, the restaurants currently are all closed, or many are. If you are closed, you have until June 30th to bring your full staff back. So there's a lot of details here, and I think it's really important to understand specific that each company is in a different position. So by all means, happy to talk through individually with anyone offline.
Thanks, guys. I'm looking forward to when Dan gets here. He's gonna have some insights. So, he's still working his way over. But any other kind of questions, whether it's SBA related, if we're able to answer them, we'll do our best. But otherwise, city related things or just comments in general.
It's Jade Moran again. I have one more question that is related to my business being closed. I keep seeing these, you could potentially get a $300 fine if you're seen to be working on your premises, but I'm a business owner as well as a W-2 employee. So I have both hats. And my feeling is that if I'm there for operations, meaning like picking up paperwork, I couldn't bring my entire office home. Picking up paperwork, watering my plants, making sure the heat is on, that's legitimate and no one's gonna give me a $300 ticket, especially if I'm not meeting with any clients and I'm, just literally getting out of my car, going into my business and leaving again. But do you have any guidance about that?
I'm gonna.
Jade, I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah.
If you're a business owner working, showing up in your business, filing things away, we're more concerned when people are congregating and when businesses are open and people feel like it's comfortable for the customers feel like it's comfortable for them to walk in. If you're just in your business, what's the nature of your business anyhow?
I'm a jeweler. I'm on Highland Ave.
All right, so you're going to be fine as long as you have a closed a sign that says closed on your front door. I think you're going to be fine.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Hey guys, it's Dan from the SBA.
Oh, the mysterious caller number 2. Love it.
Oh God!
What an entrance!
For some reason, it was freezing up my computer with the app. It's not. I don't know what's going on. So I had to shut down my whole computer, and it's still not coming up.
Okay, well,
so I'm sorry.
No problem. Glad you could join us. This is good timing. So I have your slide deck up, and if you're all right, I'm happy to get it going and hand it off to you.
All right, cool. Let me just bring it up here. All right, cool. So Nick, who am I talking to? Is it just the staff or is it?
No, yeah, Stan, you have the floor. We have 18 attendees in the meeting today. It's open to all businesses, business partners, and so this is a weekly meeting that we're doing just to provide updates to businesses about what we've been up to and relevant information. So this was a hot topic that folks were interested in hearing about, and I think that speaks to the 18 attendees who are here today. So that's a little background, and Otherwise, I will get your slide deck up and hand it over.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, I'm a little late. You know, we have these back-to-back meetings and stuff. So, and then computer problems on top of that. You know, it always snowballs. But you're listening to Dan Martiniello. I'm a lender relations specialist for the Small Business Administration here at the Massachusetts District Office. So, before I start, I just want to, let you guys know, we're here trying to help you as much as possible. There's a lot of different programs that have come out. There's a lot of information that has come out, and it can get confusing. And I totally, understand that, because, we're trying to help the lending partners to provide assistance to you guys. And, these are some large funding programs that, had to be created almost overnight. So, definitely if you're feeling frustrated or, things like that, I hope everything is trying to get worked out, and it will get worked out eventually. But, just try to bear with, especially with the lenders and stuff, because they're taking on tremendous volume right now when it comes to, some of these programs, the applications for the Paycheck Protection Program. But, we're definitely with you. We hear everybody's concerns, and, those are being brought up the chain. So hopefully these programs can, become better and revised as time goes on. And, hopefully we're all not dealing with this issue, months on end too. That's I think what will give everybody the most relief at the end of the day, if we can, get outside of our houses and get back to, normal life for the most part. So, I know Nick's got the slide deck up. So if we want to just go to slide number 2, this is just a screenshot of the overall programs that the SBA is involved in or is offering when it comes to economic recovery. So we have several different programs. I know the Paycheck Protection Program is probably the most talked about right now. That's in the media the most right now. And then we also have the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which also is heavily advertised. And there's a lot of questions and concerns about that, because that's been out for a few weeks now, and it's gone through some changes over the last few weeks. So I'll touch upon that. And then we'll talk about our other programs that we have that maybe aren't as well known, or just some information as far as debt relief. So the SBA Express Bridge Loans, and then also SBA debt relief. So that will be consistent with anybody that has an SBA loan currently out, whether that's a 7A loan, whether it's a 504 loan, or through our micro lenders. There is going to be some debt relief on those loans as well. So I'll touch base on that in case anybody on the line actually has a current SBA loan out. So if we want to go to the next slide, that will bring us up to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan emergency. So with this, I know, first I want to start off, I know there's a big talk when it comes to the $10,000 advance, and that was highly advertised in the media and things like that. One thing I want to know, when it comes to this program and that $10,000 advance, that is up to $10,000. It's not, does not mean every small business that applies for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan will get a $10,000 advance. It's up to $10,000. So, if you apply today, and you'll notice on the application, I think it's around the last question on the application, it will ask you if you want to apply for that up to $10,000 advance. Once it's received by a credit analyst and it's reviewed, that credit analyst will make that decision based on the need of the business, if you're going to get $10,000 or something less than that. We're going to get some more clarification, because I know a lot of people have heard rumors. Well, it has to do with how many employees you have and things like that. And I don't have a clear indication or nothing official on that, so I don't want to say yes, that's definitely how they're looking at each individual business. So, but I just want to really keep in mind that the $10,000 advance, it's up to $10,000. So with that said, this program itself has been out for a few weeks now. It's gone through many changes. If you are on the line and you applied maybe the last time that I was on a call with the city, you're probably going to notice that the system today is much more streamlined. It's a very simple application. A few weeks ago, we were on a call talking about you need about 3 years of taxes, you need a lot of additional supporting documentation. All of that does not apply at this point. One thing to note, if you have already applied and you're still waiting to hear an answer, and you applied before that option of the up to $10,000 advance, it's suggested that you go back into the system, reapply, and click on the box that you would like to be considered for the up to $10,000 advance, because anybody that applied, like say in the first week, wouldn't have saw that question, and the SBA is not going to assume that everybody wants an advance. So it won't remove you from the queue as far as your place in line for the overall economic injury disaster loan, but it will start the ball rolling on that advance if you're granted that. So another thing too, when it comes to these loans, as far as that has changed over the last few weeks as well. So I know I was on with the city a week or maybe 2 weeks ago at this point. I'm losing track of days here, sorry. But to that, they've opened it up a little bit. As you can see on the slide down at the bottom, you have faith-based organizations, including houses of worship, are now eligible under both programs that I'm going to talk to you about, the PPP and the EIDL loan program. So keep that in mind. When it first started out, they were not eligible. So you'll see on the next slide, if you want to go to the next slide.
Yep.
As far as who can apply, this is your first screen when you're determining whether your entity is eligible to apply or not. If you fall under one of these and choose one of these that apply to you, then you're okay to proceed, with the loan. You're eligible to apply for this loan. So, just keep that in mind. You'll see that on the very first page, of the application itself. So we can go to the next slide. So I'll talk about the terms and of the actual EIDL loan itself. So one thing to note, the EIDL loan is a loan that is directly from the government. So this isn't a loan that you would go into a local lending institution to get. So just keep that in mind. This is all done online. It's all on SBA's website. The money is coming from the Treasury through the SBA to you, the borrower. All right. So there's no lending partner, no credit union or anything like that you need to go to walk in to apply for this. When it comes to how much can you apply for? One thing on the application you'll see there is no question that asks you how much you can apply for. The credit analyst that is assigned your loan will make that determination and send you out an offer sheet. So you just keep that in mind. If you didn't see it, you're not going crazy, your eyes aren't spinning. It's not there because the SBA's disaster teams, the analysts, are making that decision. The loans can go up to $2 million. I mean, we've been seeing for the last several weeks, loans approved under this program in the state of Massachusetts. Right now, me personally, I think the largest one I've seen was around $750,000, and we have loans that are as low as $10,000. So again, it's going to be case by case based on the need of the business. But they do go up to $2 million. Interest rates for most small business concerns will be 3.75%. And the only time that's going to be different, if you're a nonprofit organization applying, your interest rate will be 2.75%. So those are not negotiable rates. Those are standard for everybody. So if you're a business with 400 employees or a business with one or two employees, you're getting the same rate. The terms are at 30-year terms. So they do extend out for quite some time. One thing to note when it comes to applying, there's no cost to apply. There's no prepayment penalties on these. So, best case scenario for everybody, the pandemic ends, we can get outside the house, everybody can start running their business, like they normally would, and hopefully growing. If you decide that you just want to pay this loan off, you feel free to do so. There's no prepayment penalty cost to do that. a couple other things you want to note as far as the approval goes. If you got an approval today and you accepted, the loan from the beginning will be on a 12-month deferment, which means you will not have to pay payments on this loan for the first 12 months of the loan. With that said, once funds are dispersed to you, interest will accrue on those funds during that 12 months. What they'll do is spread out that interest over the remaining term of the loan. So just a couple things to keep in mind. What can these loans be utilized for? So these are working capital loans. They're not a line of credit where you can, utilize the funds, pay it back, utilize it again. That's not how this works. They're utilized to pay fixed debts. They can pay payroll. They can pay, and I'll talk about the payroll piece when I talk about the PPP program. They can pay accounts payable and other bills, that you would typically incur had the pandemic not happened. So, one thing they're not intended for is to replace any lost sales or profits or utilized for expansion of your business. So you want to just, keep that in mind. So if you want to go to the next slide, Nick.
Yep, all set.
And this is just a sample of what the front page looks like. So, we want to caution everybody when it comes to when you're applying for certain loans, make sure you went to SBA.gov or you utilize this link down below on this slide, because there are, realistically, when bad situations like this happen, the predators come out and they try to make faulty sites. Maybe they make up a SBA logo that looks similar. So just make sure if you're ever unsure of where to go to apply, just start at SBA.gov and you'll see plenty of links and that will be all over the place on our website right now that talk about the coronavirus relief, and it will bring you to this application process if you're ever in question about a certain link that you've been sent. Because you definitely don't, we are seeing, certain instances where people have gotten approvals and it wasn't our site. So, I don't know if they were, using some other lending site that's, maybe it's small business, they say in small business association as opposed to administration. And, it's a difficult time for everybody. So we just want to keep that in mind. Always utilize SBA.gov when in doubt. So the next slide.
Yep.
So when it comes to the EIDL loan itself, so unfortunately at the Massachusetts office, so our field office, so myself, my colleague Carlos Hernandez, and my other colleague Eli Spayu, we're part of the lender relations team. We do not have actual access to these disaster loans, so under this program. So, unfortunately, we do get a lot of calls, we get a lot of emails from small businesses wanting to check the status of their loan, wanting to, maybe they entered something in wrong on their application, they want that fixed, or, just different, questions as far as what phase or how much they may be getting, or, analyst questions, things like that. We unfortunately can't answer those for you because I can't look up a loan for you right now to find out what stage it's in, how much you might be getting. So you have to utilize the phone number given on this slide, the 800-659-2955, or email the disaster customer service at sba.gov. Realistically, you might have to wait for an answer for a little bit. They are fielding calls from, businesses from all 50 states. Typically with the disaster teams, when they're dealing with a disaster, it might be maybe a hurricane or a tornado that maybe have affected one state or a few counties. They're taking on a volume with the same personnel of 50 states. So it's much different than what is typically done. So, just bear in mind, you may have to wait, but someone will get, to answer your email or your phone call.
And Dan, we got a question in the chat from Joe from El Potro, a restaurant in Union Square in Somerville. Was on a call today with Mass Director Bob Morgan, and he said you could use the funds from an EIDL to make necessary repairs so you are ready to reopen. Also heard it was a line of credit that was specific and not full amount of money paid at one time. Could you speak to that at all? Maybe it's referring to,
Yeah. So, but
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so it's not a line of credit in the sense that I think most people are thinking. So, it's like a typical line of credit, a revolving line of credit you can use, kind of like a credit card. You can use, pay back, use, pay back. That's not how this loan program works. But yeah, repairs and things like that. Oh yeah, you can use that. That's not part of expansion. That's trying to get your business back up and running. When I gave you that list of things you can use, that's not everything on there. That's just kind of examples of some things. But yeah, repairs, you can use the loan itself. If you applied for the advance too, may be given out in 2 separate phases. So if you're taking the advance is the forgivable portion. So let's say you did get the $10,000 advance, that in itself will end up being forgivable. So that portion. The other part of the EIDL loan is not forgivable. So that would actually be on the terms that I talked about just a few slides ago. But it's the so I don't know if the line of credit, I don't know, I wasn't on that call. So, but yeah, it's not a line of credit in the traditional sense. You can use it as a working capital, but not a line of credit.
Got it. Okay, do you want to move to the Paycheck Protection Program? I have your next slide up here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so now we get that Paycheck Protection Program, and I know that's another hot button topic. It's been all over the media, both locally and nationally, and there's a lot of questions out there and a lot of confusion, and trust me, I totally understand that. And what I want to say about this program first is, this is it's a new program. It just started Friday. Guidance on this program was given Thursday night before the program was to be implemented nationally. So, there's a lot of lenders, that we work with that are doing a fantastic job taking in applications, helping the small business communities, but it is a lot of work for them because there's still more additional guidance and additional clarity on a lot of questions that came out in the interim rule, which is the guidance that everybody has to go by. So, I know that a lot of you may be working with different lenders in your community. Just try to bear with them as much as possible. They are these lender partners that we have, throughout the state. They are working literally night and day. I can tell you because I've been on the phone with some at midnight during the week. So, trying to get these processed and trying to get them correctly processed and to help the small businesses. But they are, there's a ton of applications coming in right now. So the demand is extremely high. So just try to work with them as best as possible and just know that they are trying to do it for you as fast as they can. So with that said, the Paycheck Protection Program, this program is primarily used for payroll, right? So this is to try to get your employees, the intention is to get your employees, paid and back to work. One big question out there that is always asked, can you apply for both the EIDL and the PPP? Yes, you can. One thing I want to say is you want to be careful when you do that because the way the calculation is done is if you utilize the EIDL for payroll purposes to any degree, that has to be factored into the Paycheck Protection Program and how much money is given to you. Because if so you want to just be mindful, of that. If you're going to utilize the economic injury disaster loan and you're going to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program, you may want to use the EIDL loan for all of those other expenses and then focus the Paycheck Protection Program on what it's truly intended for, which is payroll. But as you can see here on the slide, the intention is to utilize it for payroll, but you can there is some leeway to utilize it for, rent and lease, mortgage interest, and utilities. So, keep that in mind. They're giving like a 25% of the loan can be utilized for those other purposes outside, of payroll. So they are giving a little bit of leeway on that. All of these loans are set up at a 2-year maturity. So maturity actually starts from the day the funds are dispersed on the loan. They're all going to be on a 6-month deferment for the get-go, and they're all going to have an interest rate of 1%. And those were some things that, before the program even started, there was a lot of miscommunication and stuff being put out in the media and in social media and places like LinkedIn with the rates and the terms, and they weren't correct. And they changed that. Even the rate itself was changed from 0.5% to 1% the day before the program even got put in place. So, I highly suggest when it comes to getting information on these programs, utilize treasury.gov, SBA, and SBA.gov for your sources of information, because they're the ones really, the SBA and the Treasury is really the driving force behind these programs. So when anything new comes out, they post it on their websites. And as far as, for forgiveness, right now, there's a couple of things that you want to be mindful of on this program. So I'll go over, I think that's coming up on the next couple of slides here. If we go to the frequently asked questions.
Yep.
So these are some things that have been heavily asked, and there's more questions that are coming in by the day, and the Treasury is actually compiling that list and trying to update these as they come in. So, again, utilize the Treasury website for their frequently asked questions, because every day I've seen new questions being added on there and the answers to those questions. So it's definitely a good tool, to have, save it on your favorites. But, for payroll costs, for you as the borrower, payroll and costs include salary, wages, commissions, tips. They also include, benefits, including cost of vacation, parental, family, medical, sick, and you can see the other stuff on here. When it comes to salary and wages, you'll see in parentheses it says it's capped at $100,000 on an annual basis for each employee. So basically, when you're figuring out the calculation, you're trying to figure out what is your average monthly payroll. So with that said, if you have anybody that makes over $100,000, you have to minus that from the payroll. So, and we're just talking about monetary $100,000. Some of these other benefits that they have in here, retirement benefits and things like that, may realistically put a person over $100,000. But when they're talking about the cap, they're just talking about the monetary, not including the benefits. And then other things you can see is state and local taxes assessed on compensation. When it comes to sole proprietors or independent contractors, wages, commissions, income, or net earnings from self-employment, again, it's capped at $100,000 on an annualized basis for each employee. So another question that comes up frequently, how large can my loan be? It's a little bit different than the EIDL. These loans can actually go up to $10 million. Again, that's going to be based on, the calculation that is done by you, the borrower, on your average monthly salary. So, if you're a small business with only a few employees, you're not going to get anywhere near that cap. But if you have 500 employees, you might. But it is capped at a $10 million threshold. So, as far as, if you're a seasonal or a new business, you'll be able to use different applicable time periods for your calculation. So payroll, again, will be capped at $100,000. So if you go to the Treasury's website, it will show you what time frames you can use for seasonal businesses, because that was a big question when this first came out. They didn't really make it clear on if seasonal businesses qualified or not based on the interim rules. So now they have that listed on the Treasury website, so you can certainly go to utilize that if you're a seasonal business. I don't know how many in the Somerville area are, but just in case. And then, how much of the loan will be forgiven? Because that's obviously, an important question, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're taking, $100,000 $100,000 or whatever the case may be, for your payroll, you want to make sure, this program that you don't owe $100,000 in a 2-year period, because that's a lot for pretty much everybody. So, with that said, they are coming out with a guidance to help our lending partners, with that process when it comes time for small businesses to ask for forgiveness on these loans. So what's basically going to happen is you have the loans dispersed, you have about an 8-week period to utilize the funds. You as the borrower need to make sure that you keep track of how those funds are utilized. And then when it comes time to forgiveness, you'll bring in all of that supporting documentation that shows how the funds were utilized to the lenders. And then the lenders have a certain time frame. Right now, what I'm hearing is a 60-day time frame to make that decision and, submit that to the SBA to ask for full forgiveness of the loan. So the intention that most of these loans should be, if they're utilized in the proper manner, should be fully forgiven, right? But there may be instances that, the amount given to the borrower wasn't utilized to the proper manner, so they may owe a portion of that loan. So a couple of things you want to keep in mind here, when it comes to staff and payroll and what you need to maintain. So number of staff, your loan forgiveness will be reduced if you decrease your full-time employee headcount. Level of payroll, your loan forgiveness will also be reduced if you decrease salaries and wages by more than 25% for any employee that made less than $100,000 annualized in 2019. And rehiring, you will have until June 30th, 2020 to restore your full-time employment and salary levels for any changes made between February 15th, 2020 and April 26th, which is in a few weeks. So, you want to just keep those, thoughts in mind when you're utilizing this program. On the next slide, I'm not going to read through everything on here, but what's important that I want to note is the question is, what do I need to certify? So all of these bullet points here, when you actually fill out an application, and you're working with your lender on your application, you're going to need to certify all of these bullet points. So typically on an SBA loan, our lenders have to do a variety of checks. They're checking all the financial data that you've given. They're verifying the taxes through the IRS were given are correct. They're asking for personal guarantees based on, the ownership. They're looking at available collateral to try to secure the loan as much as possible. All of those things under this program do not apply. So there's no personal guarantees. There's no collateral. You're providing them financial documentation that supports how you got to the calculation, not how they got to the calculation of the average monthly payroll. So all of those things considered, it's really the onus for the information is on the borrower for these loans. The lenders are going to do their due diligence and figure out how it is you got to that calculation and making sure that everything that was utilized fits under the program. But at the end of the day, it's on the borrower to provide that information. And there's a variety of different financial documentations based on your business on what you can provide that shows how you came to the determination of your annual monthly salary. So, that's something that, you just want to be clear, make sure you give them what you have, as far as the lenders go, so that they can just, at least at the very least, they would need to check the math and, make sure that the calculation's correct, because, they don't want to give someone they don't want to, shortchange anybody, and they also don't want to give too much to somebody. That doesn't do anybody justice, so they're going to try their best. If they do see a miscalculation, they're going to try to work with you as best as they can to remedy that. So just keep that, in mind when you're applying for these loans.
So Dan, we got two questions that, and I also want to make sure we're respectful of everyone's time. It is just about 4. I know folks may have to jump off, but please join us as we continue through the slide deck. The question we had, on the first Paycheck protection slide, you referenced full-time equivalent employees, do businesses that want to, how do they count part-time employees? Is that something that is eligible for this program?
Yeah. So I went back into the interim rule earlier, and it doesn't specify, and I'll get some clarity, but it doesn't specify as far as the calculation goes. When you're doing, it just says your overall employees. But when it comes to forgiveness, it's about rehiring your full-time staff. So it kind of, when it comes to the calculation side, it doesn't say only calculate full-time employees, but when it comes to maintaining staff levels, it talks about maintaining staff levels for full-time employees. So, but I'll get some clarity. From what I understand, most banks are lumping both full-time and part-time employees together. For the calculation purposes, the forgiveness will be, looks like it's going to be a little bit different. As far as maintaining staff levels, they're focusing on the full-time employees versus the part-time employees.
Great. And then Jade, I'm going to invite you to ask your question, if you want to unmute about, I guess your particular situation that may arise for you.
Yes. I have one person that's worked for me for 4 years or so with varying hours. And last year in 2019, she averaged maybe 25 hours a week. If she's unwilling to take the hours, or she moves or decides to change her job, can I hire someone else to meet the requirements? I mean, obviously I'll put myself back on payroll and I'm a shoo-in, but I'm worried about her not
You're fully
being
committed, you're saying?
Yeah.
Got the full commitment? Yeah, so when it comes to that, that's a good question, because there's nothing in the rule that says it has to be the same staff. It's talking about full-time employment levels, but it's not saying that it has to be the same employees. Nick, is that something you could maybe write down and shoot over to me in an email? Because that is a good question, and I haven't heard that asked by anybody before.
Yeah, I'll write that out to you.
Clarity on. Okay. Yeah, but thank you for the question, because that is. I don't want to make an assumption. I would assume they're really thinking about numbers versus who the actual employee is. But let me double check on that for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. So I have you queued up here, Dan. Again,
yeah.
maybe I'll open it up for a minute just so that folks have a chance if they do need to jump off with any questions right now. And then, if we can take a minute, and then if not, then we can just power on through. We have maybe 4 or 5 more slides. Is that right, Dan? I have to look, but about the bridge loan.
Yeah.
And
if honestly we know no one has an SBA loan, there's no point for me to go over the last slide if no one actually has an SBA loan.
Okay.
Because that would only be if someone has a current SBA loan that would pertain to.
Okay, but the bridge loan we could do, and then we could stop there. Is that right? Or no, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh wow. All right. So yeah, that's only for folks.
Yeah.
You're saying who have an existing.
Yeah. The only other one we probably want to just touch on, because it is an option out there, is the SBA Express bridge loans.
Great.
I don't think it's been talked about too much, in the media, so not as many people may know about this. But these loans came out. This came out right after the EIDL loans did, and the intention of this is basically to provide a bridge or a gap while a borrower is waiting for the decision on the EIDL loan. With that said, for a borrower to look into this, they would have to connect with their bank, because this is something that's part of our normal SBA Express program, and it's just an offshoot of it. So the lender has to be an express lender. The borrower itself has to be a current business customer of the business of the lender already. So for this particular program, the loans only go up to $25,000. The lender is utilizing their own policies and procedures to underwrite these loans on SBA's behalf. Terms on it is up to 7 years, even though the intention is to either fully pay off or pay down with the EIDL loan proceeds for the loan. Rates can be either fixed or variable. That's just depending on the bank you're working with. And the rate range is prime plus 6.5. And again, that would vary based on the bank that's utilizing it. So this is a program we can't enforce the banks to offer it, or, you know, just because they are an express lender, they don't have to utilize this, but it is an option. So if you know your lender is an express lender, if you ask them, you know, that may be an option you want to talk to them about as well, especially if you've applied for the EIDL loan and you're waiting to hear back on funding for that. And then the last piece was just the SBA debt relief. So the SBA is actually working with the lenders right now. They're gonna be, if you have a current SBA loan, whether it's under a microloan program, 504 or 7A program, and your loan's current or on deferment, they're going to be looking. The SBA is actually going to be paying the loan for upwards of 6 months. So they're going to be paying the principal and interest and any fees on those loans for a period of 6 months. So that is a good thing. So if you have an SBA loan, connect with your lender where you have that, and they'll be getting you more information when the time comes. We're still waiting on some guidance on that, so they don't have all the answers, but that is something, you know, if you're an SBA lender, that you can look forward to, you know, or get some sort of relief for the time being. And then the very last slide, like I was saying earlier, where you get your information is really important. And I highly suggest, I can't force anybody, but I highly suggest, if you're looking up the federal funding programs, to please utilize the SBA's website and the U.S. Treasury's website, and also our own Mass District Office website, because, you know, there is I'm on LinkedIn, just like I'm sure a lot of you are, and there's a lot of information that's being spit out on LinkedIn that is not correct. You know, this information is not coming in as fast as probably a lot of people want, but at the end of the day, the SBA is trying to provide the correct information, not trying to be the first to come out with the information, because it's causing more confusion, you know, with some organizations coming out with inaccurate, information, or jumping the gun when they hear a rumor, you know. So please utilize, the U.S. Treasury is updating information as it comes in as quick as possible. So yeah, definitely utilize those links. If also to our office is, we have an email blast, so we try to provide, you know, up-to-date information, newsworthy information through that. If you want, go to our website, go to the bottom right-hand corner, and you can sign up for that email blast and get information that pertains to Massachusetts-based businesses. All right.
Great, thank you, Dan. We have a question, and this, from our Main Street's Jessica. Would you actually be able to hop off, and would you be interested in asking the question directly?
Sure thing, Nick. Can I just confirm that you can hear me okay? I was having some echoing earlier.
No, you sound great.
I can hear you.
Thank you. So thank you for this information. We serve 192 businesses in Union Square, and everything with, I ask, have you applied? Are you successful? What's going on? I have only heard of one business who has successfully applied and heard back. The most concerning thing that I'm hearing is many of our businesses have relationships with local banks, which are not SBA lender approved. And because they don't have existing relationships with Citizens or other banks, they're not able to file their applications with those larger banks. Do you have advice?
So if we're talking the Paycheck Protection Program, right now, as of today, you probably see very few funding dollars being put out. I know our politicians, they made these lovely promises that money's going to be out the door in 2 business days or 3 business days or whatever everybody was hearing. Realistically, when a new program comes in, you got $350 billion, and everybody has to try to learn that overnight. Money doesn't get out that quick, at the end of the day, but funds are actually being sent out. So the program just started on Friday. Banks were just notified yesterday that they have upwards of 10 days to close from the day they got an approval on these loans. That they're also getting hundreds and hundreds of loans, much higher volumes than they're ever used to for their own loan program. So it is stretching them thin, and they're trying to get as many people into the system as possible. Again, this is a new program. Thursday night, no one knew how to enter these loans into the system. So myself, Carlos, and Eli are tasked, three of us, with trying to help every single lender in the state of Massachusetts. So, it's definitely a work in progress with that. But as far as needing to be a customer of the bank, you do not need to be a customer of a bank, of a certain bank, to actually apply. You can technically apply everywhere. With that said, though, I can't speak for every bank. Every bank leadership, right now they're trying to figure out the program. They're trying to work out the kinks on their end as well, and figure out how to process it themselves. So right now, I am hearing that there are several banks that are only accepting their customers right now because they're just trying to work out all the issues that come with implementing this new program. But I would tell anybody to continue to try most banks. There are a lot of new banks too that are being approved SBA lenders just for this particular program. Like, I think we've already have 12 banks in Massachusetts, or credit unions too, that have gotten approvals to submit PPP applications. So just this program itself. With that said, if they don't have any SBA loan experience prior, we have to get them ready and trained and on board. That's going to take some time. They're not going to know how to process a loan in the SBA if they have never done it before. So even though you get new banks on there, realistically, they're not going to be experts the day they become approved, which was probably within the last 24 hours. So I would have them continually try. If they most banks are already SBA approved. So I would say in Massachusetts, about 80 to 90% of banks have SBA approval. So I would just make sure that they're connecting with their bank. If not, we also have on our website all of the banks that we deal with. They can reach out to any of those banks in the area and see what the status is. But like I said, they are taking a ton of applications. So if there's going to be time gaps where maybe they're not taking applications because they're trying to get the ones that they have submitted, that might happen from time to time. But it is a totally new program, we're being tasked to dish out $350 billion in 2 months, 3 months, basically. And the best year ever for the SBA as a nation was $30 billion. So, it's gonna take some time to work out the kinks. But I would just tell them to keep trying with their local banks and ask more than one bank if they're not getting assistance at their own bank.
Thank you. That's the advice I've been giving, and unfortunately, on the ground, it's really discouraging because they'll call the next bank that I have a lead on, and first question, are you an existing customer of ours? Sorry, we can't help. So I'm glad to be able to report that to you, so you are aware of just the severity of it. And pretty diligent business owners who are sophisticated in taking the advice that I've heard you offer thus far. So if additional becomes available, I trust you would share it with the city or through your channels, and we'll receive it that way.
Yeah, so our district director, Bob Nelson's actually, I think by tonight or maybe tomorrow, they're going to list new PPP lenders on our website. I saw an email because I've been on 3 conference calls for the last 3 hours, so I haven't been able to really check my emails. But I noticed that his thing came across that he's looking to put that on the website either tonight or tomorrow. But just to give you, some numbers that I do have, just to kind of, so typically Massachusetts, we average for our 7A loan program, we're averaging between 2,500 and 3,500 SBA loans. Right now, within 5 days, Massachusetts has 12,000 approved applications and another 1,000 in process. So, that just kind of details how thin these lenders are kind of stretched, so that's 12,000 in 5 days when we average 25 to 3,500 a year. So it is, unfortunately, we can't enforce the banks to create certain policies, but they are definitely trying their best. They are working long hours of the night because I'm on the phone with a lot of these institutions at midnight.
Thanks, Jessica and Dan, for the response. At this point, I'd love to open it up again, guys. We're a small enough group at this point. Feel free to unmute yourself. If you do have a question, we can kind of set this up in a conversational manner. But I want to thank you, Dan, for joining us today as well. And I understand if folks need to hop off, it is 4:15 at this point. So, we'll do we'll last call, I guess, for questions right now, and then go from there.
Dan, my name is John Wiseman, and I'm with Middlesex Federal. We are very much one of those banks that you just described, where we're finalizing the process of getting onto the system. And as much as we'd like to help our customers, all of the things that you identified in terms of the challenges with the processing and the fact that the portal goes down and the reject rate are all obstacles to being able to help. And I think, as you correctly identified, there's a profound disconnect between an administration that is publicly saying this thing is going great and bankers who are trying to make it work. And I was on a call yesterday with more than 100 bankers from all throughout New England, and they were all struggling because the guidance, the note that was sent out was a note from 2002, and it had elements in it that didn't relate to the program, and that was what people were supposed to use, and it was just a lot of confusion. And I think you put it in the right perspective, that the scale of what's trying to be accomplished in this short period is, and with the staff, and I assume you folks are primarily probably working from home as well, or trying to work with that.
Oh yeah.
And you're trying to do 12 or 14 times the volume in a very short period. And when this program started, of the 5,400 banks in the country, 1,800 of them were SBA lenders. So, there's a huge disconnect between what's being advertised and what's the reality. And then the system it just doesn't work real well. And, it's frustrating to have to explain or try and work with a customer. And like I said, we haven't been able to put a loan into the system yet. We're just working through the final elements of the approval there. So, I did hear, and I think Tom Galligani was on the call as well. The folks over at Century are open to taking all comers. They have a pretty well-developed system, and they are an experienced SBA lender. So, they've got staff and the background and the people to do it. And just today, the Federal Reserve came out with a liquidity facility that will I think really even accelerate this. And so, the real challenge is time is a problem. The small businesses need the money now, and these delays are really a challenge. And we've heard from a lot of our customers, because early on we just kept directing them to other places because we had applied and hadn't gotten any feedback. So I'm hopeful that things balance out and people get the money, but it's tough. And it is an awesome opportunity if people can get access to it, but it's been a real challenge.
Yeah, no, I definitely definitely agree. You know, unfortunately, you know, you got one side of the house that, you know, is telling, you know, small businesses that it's easy, and, you know, it's not at the end of the day. You know, so it's, yeah, that can definitely, you know, the understanding on the multiple levels. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of disconnect, you know, with that, and the expectation of having lenders be experts on a program that is being pieced together, because it's brand new for everybody, from, you know, from the people in Washington to us here locally. And then for people to say that the money should be dished out in a few business days, it's just, you know, it's not realistic, you know, at the end of the day. You know, but, you know, eventually, you know, it will work out its kinks and things like that, and people will get their money. We are seeing, you know, some institutions, and like you were saying, John, yeah, there are some institutions that have been, you know, doing SBA loans, so they're more familiar with the systems, you know, and you're seeing some of those institutions right now providing those funds. But that's not to say any other institution, you know, is not trying their best in doing the same exact thing. It's just, it's going to take time for different institutions to work through this process to even get access to the systems. You know, we have a team of people in Washington that are supposed to give all of these new lenders access to the system, and there's only a very small team, around 5 people, and they are having 70,000 to 75,000 new requests within the last couple of days. So, you know, trying to filter through all that, you know, is, you know, when normally they're just dealing with a few, you know, maybe a couple dozen requests a day, on, you know, issues with the system or issues with passwords. They're trying to sign up 70,000 new people that have no, you know, SBA experience. So that's a tall task for a small group.
Well, Dan, we really appreciate you taking the time here. I know you're on a 3-hour marathon right now, and to get this information to businesses. And so thank you so much for providing some, you know, clarity around these important questions that many of us have about the different options right now. And again, appreciate your kind of candid insights onto, you know, how the program is going, and you know, it is something that is being improved, and many people are working very hard for very long hours to iron out all the kinks. So we appreciate that. I think with that, guys, I'm gonna close this meeting out. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to shoot us an email. I'll put on you know, our economic development email in the chat, and then we can relay those to Dan. But otherwise, thank you all for joining us, and we'll be doing this again next week. Just a weekly town hall. It's Thursdays at 3 p.m. if you're able to join. We will come up with our agenda between now and then. But if you have any suggestions on what you guys would like to hear about, please reach out to us directly. Great. Thank you all so much.
Nick.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.